Good morning and welcome. We had hoped that this year's annual event would be live and in person, but perhaps next year. This year we wanted to show our full support for the hospital and our health heroes who have been working tirelessly over the last 24 months. So we wanted to tell you all thank you. We appreciate you very much, and we know that each of you have made sacrifices as health professionals. So Kootenai Health, Heritage Health, Panhandle Health District, and Northwest Specialty Hospital, thank you for all that you've done and continue to do for our community through this pandemic. Although we've had our challenges, North Idaho and our state as a whole has done very well. We have been very busy in the office fielding phone calls from local businesses interested in expanding operations, as well as businesses from other communities thinking about moving into the area. We all know that there are challenges that come with this growth. Our panelists will cover some of those challenges in the next few minutes, and please know that my board and I are well aware of these issues, as well as other issues, and we are working with community and business leaders to find solutions. Thank you again for attending our annual event. We thank you for your support, and please, let's get started. We've been working in a very exciting video project with Pulse Productions. We've been interviewing community leaders that work with CdAEDC, and we're excited to show you a teaser of that video project.
Coeur d'Alene Economic Development Corporation is a perfect example of partnering.
We have an excellent full-time staff, a wealth of knowledge and state and local connections. Plus, we have a very large and diversified board of directors, from government officials to industry leaders to healthcare officials to education officials. With that team of staff and the team of board of directors, we can help your industry and business relocate to this area and/or expand and meet your needs.
The region itself is a great place to relocate. It's a great place to raise a family. It's also a great opportunity to grow a business. In my opinion, there's a lot of great untapped potential to see development continue.
They allow us to provide a much more vibrant economy with quality of jobs, allowing our residents a better quality of life.
Together, we can make a better proposal for you. The corporation actually has the contacts and the resources to stretch beyond what the city of Rathdrum can do by itself.
We have talented people that are focused on getting it done. Those talented people at our EDC then reach out to the community-minded individuals, board members, elected officials, and professionals that have been recruited to help share our story about why business should be in North Idaho.
Coeur d'Alene EDC can provide information and contacts for you to have the ability to be able to analyze our community and see if it's a good fit for you, see if it makes sense financially, people-wise, housing-wise.
This organization was built on a group of business leaders who decided that we have to stay here and make a stand and try to be creative about how we both encourage companies to come and build smaller companies into larger entities.
Is they not only bring new jobs and talent and businesses to this region, but really are a business connector. So they help our business community connect and grow and really build new vision around what this region can be in the future.
They're all about relationships, and that's what is key to what they do. If you're new coming here, it's difficult to know all the different parties that you need to engage with. That goes from DEQ, environmental, utility, all of municipalities and county. So it's important to have someone that has a great relationship with the community and knowing how to get things done much quicker.
Well, welcome everybody to our annual meeting. We have a great program for you today. This year we highlight working together to build back stronger. As we continue to take steps out of the pandemic, your EDC Jobs Plus is working together to continue our economic recovery. We need to work as one to ensure that we're working together to build back stronger. You know, if you think about it, we are resilient, we're confident, we're renowned for our solidarity and sticking together when times are tough. And here today, we tell the stories of just some of our amazing partners, our businesses, our projects, and organization that Jobs Plus has supported. We want to also take a minute or two, and I recognize that today, December 7th, marks the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor attacks, as well as the National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day of 2021. We're honored to all those who served that fateful day and those who sacrificed their lives to uphold the independence of America and our Constitution. May God bless the brave men and women who protect our freedom and bless the United States of America. Again, back to our program. Before you hear more about working to build back stronger, we'll go first into our very important thank you phase of the project, our program. So please bear with us. We have a lot of people to thank because, as you know, economic development is a group effort. We have a 3-person office team with Gynii, Lauren, and Josh that rely on all these partners to successfully help business. So let's start. I'd like to take a minute to recognize Idaho State, county, and local elected officials thank you for being here. I'd like to recognize our board of directors. We have almost 30 incredible community leaders on our board. We have Mike Kennedy from Intermax Network, Tag Jacqueline from the Riverbend and Jacqueline Land Company. We have David Flood from the STCU Credit Union. We have Commissioner Chris Filios from the Kootenai County Commissioner's Office. Mayor Steve Widmeyer and Troy Tymason from the City of Coeur d'Alene. We have Mayor Ron Jacobson and Linda Wilhelm from the City of Post Falls, and Mayor Steve Griffiths and Brett Boyer from the City of Hayden, and Mayor Vic Holmes and Leon Deuce from the City of Rathdrum, Dr. Lita Burns from the North Idaho College, Dr. Larry Stauffer from the University of Idaho, Coeur d'Alene campus, Dr. Dina Nacarado from the Post Falls School District 273, and Danny Klocko from Kootenai Health, and Brad Hagedon and Clint Schroeder from the Hagedon Corporation, and Todd Kisby from the Avista Utilities, and Richard Young from the Idaho Central Credit Union, Duffy Smock from the Windermere Realty, and Nicole Sherman from the America Credit Union, and Eve Knudsen from Knudsen Chevrolet, and Chris Meyer from Parkwood Business Properties, and Scott Maricus from Empire Airlines, and Olivia Metz from the Ignite Coeur d'Alene and/or the Metz Group, and Kara Hikala from Witherspoon and Kelly, and Jessica Bowman from the Express Employment Professionals, and Pam Hauser from the Jobs and Action Committee, and Wally Jacobson from the Panhandle Area Council, and Representative Paul Amador from Idaho State, and of course, Jenny Gilliam, our President and CEO. We also want to extend a very warm thank you to our returning major event sponsors, Boughton Construction, Jacqueline Site and Riverbend Commerce Park, STCU Credit Union, Spokane International Airport, and of course, Advanced Benefits. Your continued support of this annual event means so much to us, and thank you again. Thank you for your belief in economic development and our community. You've made a difference. Now I'm going to hand the baton off to David Flood, our Secretary of Board of Directors, who will make further introductions.
Thank you, Brad. I'm here to introduce our governor. We're very honored to have Governor Brad Little provide us with a pre-recorded video update today, as he is unable to join us in person as he usually does. Thank you. The people of Idaho elected Brad Little as the state's 33rd governor in November 2018. He became governor on January 7th, 2019. Brad is an Emmett native who was raised on his family's sheep and cattle ranching operation. He graduated from the University of Idaho in 1977 with a Bachelor of Science in Agribusiness and has worked in the ranching industry for his entire professional life. In 1978, Brad had good fortune and married Teresa Sulin of Weiser. Teresa and Brad are the proud parents of 2 sons who have wonderful wives, Adam and Angela, and David and Kelsey. They have 6 beautiful grandchildren. Brad has a heart for public service. He first served in public office in 2001 when he was selected to fill a Senate vacancy. He was then elected to 4 consecutive terms to the Idaho Senate. During his service as senator, Brad was elected by his Republican peers during his first full term to serve in party leadership as Majority Caucus Chair. He then served as Idaho's 37th Lieutenant Governor, starting on January 6, 2009. Brad is committed to making decisions through one lens, the lens of ensuring Idaho's children and grandchildren have the best opportunities to stay in Idaho and for the ones who have left to return. Brad has advocated his whole life for limited government, and he works to ensure the lightest possible hand of government in the lives of Idaho's citizens, and he seeks to build the public's confidence in state government.
Hi, I'm Governor Brad Little. Thank you for the invitation to share some messages about Idaho and my priorities for our great state. Well, it's no secret, Idaho's economy, and especially the economy of North Idaho, is doing tremendously well. Idaho is the first least regulated state. Idaho is the first state for revenue growth, and Idaho is number 3 for total state economic growth. A top 10 state for lowest unemployment rates. Matter of fact, today we're number 3. The list goes on and on. Our unprecedented growth comes with both opportunities and challenges. However, even with the challenges before us, prosperity is always welcome. By now, you probably have heard me talk about my goal to make Idaho the place where all can have the opportunity to thrive and where our children and grandchildren choose to stay. And for the ones who have left to choose to return. One of the best ways to achieve that goal is continue to keep our state and community strong. At the state level, years of fiscal conservatism and cutting red tape have positioned Idaho for not 1, but 2 years of record budget surplus. This year, with our record surplus, we provided Idaho's with the largest income tax cut in state history, with ongoing tax relief. Funding for K-12 grew by 12% last year and nearly 30% this year. We achieved historic transportation funding solution without raising taxes or fees. Now we're in a position for yet another record budget surplus, and I look forward to seeking continued tax relief and strategic investments where they count, including significant investments in both education and workforce development, so you can hire and keep the skilled workers you need to get the job done. We're also putting cybersecurity, including election security, near the top of the priority list. I formed a cybersecurity task force this year with a focus on these particular issues, and you will see me push for added investments this upcoming session. We also put $45 million this year and $50 million last year into expanded broadband infrastructure to support students, working Idahoans, and businesses in rural Idaho. My focus on broadband expansion will continue. Our balance sheet includes ample and record rainy day funds. Nearly the most solvent pension fund and unemployment funds. Both of these were mentioned when the bond rating firm Fitch awarded us our first AAA rating. Collectively, this means Idaho has the best opportunity for increased prosperity, investment, and certainty of no increase in taxes. Other states often resort to raising taxes during tough times or wait on the federal government to rescue them from their own bad decisions. But in Idaho, we do not raise taxes to plug holes in government budgets. In my first year as governor, Idaho became the least regulated state. We cut and simplified 75% of all rules in a matter of months, and now we're close to 95%. This is especially important to small businesses without regulatory or legal staffs. When we reduce regulatory friction, good jobs follow. My zero-based regulation plan means on a 3-year schedule, we'll review each and every regulation, top to bottom. Simply put, how we run the state factors into the opportunity for investments. And investments lead to a more diversified economy and one with strong tourism, technology, innovation, energy, and agricultural sectors. These investments help create opportunities for the next generation of Idahoans, whether you're a native to the state or relocated here from somewhere else. I want to thank all of you, the business community in Coeur d'Alene and the surrounding area, for all you are doing to partner with the state of Idaho and others to create opportunity and success for the people and businesses of North Idaho. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Governor Little, for providing us the video. We appreciate it. My name is Mike Kennedy, and I'm the Vice Chairman of the Board of Directors for Jobs Plus, the Coeur d'Alene Economic Development Council. Today we have 3 speakers, and each of them is I'm going to introduce them individually before they speak, and then we will be opening back up to a panelist section where questions can be submitted through the GoToWebinar question module, which is on your screen. The 3 speakers, I'll tell you who they are, and then we'll introduce one at a time. The first speaker will be Jon Ness, who's the CEO of Kootenai Health. He'll be speaking on our healthcare industry in North Idaho. Next will be Josh Wright of Emsi Burning Glass, talking about the missing workforce out of Moscow, Idaho. Emsi is newly merged with Burning Glass out of Boston. And then we'll have Maggie Lyons, who will speak about our housing issues. She's the Executive Director of the Panhandle Affordable Housing Alliance. So first, let me introduce Jon Ness and get Jon ready to come on the video. Jon joined Kootenai Health in 2010 as the Chief Executive Officer. Kootenai Health, as you may know, is an independent community-owned hospital serving North Idaho, and it has doubled in size since 2011, not long after Jon took over. With 330 beds, and our local hospital owns the Kootenai Clinic and the Kootenai Care Network, which is a 500 physician network. Prior to joining Kootenai Health, Jon served as the Chief Operating Officer of Billings Clinic. He has over 35 years experience as a healthcare executive, leading organizations in Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, and Virginia. Jon currently serves on several local and regional healthcare boards. He earned his bachelor's and master's degrees from North Dakota State University, and he spent 2 years serving in the Marshall Islands in the Central Pacific. Jon is married and has 3 adult children, and at this point I'd like to turn it over to Kootenai Health CEO Jon Ness.
Well, hello, Mike. Thank you very much for your nice invitation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I've got just have a short presentation here. First of all, I want to thank the Coeur d'Alene EDC Board of Directors for all of your great contributions to the community, and as well as Gynii and her staff. So thank you for all that you do. So the theme of today's meeting is building back stronger, and I wanted to start with what is it that we're building back from? And there's probably no better way to explain that than to share just a couple of slides about our COVID-19 experience. And then the rest of the presentation will be about growth and jobs. But in our community, we've experienced 3 different surges of COVID-19 patients. And unfortunately, this is the nature of pandemics. Our first surge was in late summer of 2020 when we had 35 COVID-19 patients in the hospital. Then the trend declined, and then it went back up in late 2020 and early 2021 to 91 COVID-19 patients at Kootenai Health. Then it dropped back down. We had a period of low COVID-19, and then the Delta variant hit in August of this past year, And we spiked up all the way to 150 COVID-19 patients in the hospital. There's no hospital in the state of Idaho or the inland Northwest that had more COVID-19 patients than Kootenai Health. So it's been a real challenge for us. This slide just kind of highlights the complexity of this. Some would say that a hospital is a very complex organization with multiple factors to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And then you overlay on top of that a pandemic, and you can see the extraordinary nature of it. But I will say this as the CEO of Kootenai Health, I have never been more proud of our medical staff and our employees than I've been in the past year. They have done a remarkable job, and I'm thankful every day that they are committed to serving all of you. But we never at Kootenai Health stop thinking about growth. And so what I mostly want to talk about is population and job growth. And there's just some statistics here that are interesting. Prior to the pandemic, the projection was that Kootenai County would grow by about 75%. There's a number of indicators that would lead us to believe at Kootenai Health that that is a conservative projection. And the second bullet at the top is really interesting. We just completed a North Idaho consumer perception study, and it was done by a third party. And what they discovered was that 1/5 of the adult survey respondents had lived in Northern Idaho for less than a decade. So there are a lot of new people in our community, in our region. And the last piece is really interesting. We wanted to find out more about who was actually moving here and what their ages were. So we got a hold of some driver's license renewal data and learned that in the last 2 years, the fastest growing age cohort moving to our county is individuals between the ages of 25 and 44. So basically the millennials. And that's an interesting trend for us going forward. So as it relates to all of that growth, we have some development underway. On the left-hand side of the screen, we are expanding a heart center to add another cath lab and an electrophysiology lab for heart rhythm patients. Once again, we're expanding our main operating room to add more operating room capacity. The middle slide shows that we will be demolishing the Moody building on our campus to prepare for future growth. And on the far right, just to let you know, Kootenai Health is going to be leasing 1/2 of the Costco building just to the east of us for non-essential hospital and clinic functions. You know, in spite of the challenges of COVID-19, this is really interesting. We have had a very successful physician recruitment year, and we've discovered that in spite of all of the COVID-19 challenges, this remains a very attractive healthcare community for physicians from all across the country. And we are just so pleased that they've decided to commit to Kootenai Health and come to our community. The right-hand side just shows that we continue to have more physician recruitment needs going forward to support growth. And I just wanted to highlight one example of an area that's growing. 3 years ago, we had just a handful of providers in neurosciences. And today, as you can see, we've filled out a very strong complement of neurologists and neurosurgeons. And these practices basically serve all of Northern Idaho for a variety of neuroscience needs. So it just gives you an example of what happens when we're able to build around good physicians like Bill Gans in neurosurgery and Bill Britt in neurology. So great success there. And in terms of where we're going with healthcare employment at Kootenai Health, in past studies, we've learned that healthcare accounts for about 18% of total employment in Kootenai County. I arrived in 2010, and since then, Kootenai Health has created almost 2,000 new jobs. And you can see on the graph below, our projection is that within the next 5 years, we'll be at 5,000. And I feel that that is a conservative projection. So it gives you an idea of how big of a pipeline of candidates we will need. In terms of who works at Kootenai Health, our workforce keeps getting younger, and on the right you can see that bar. 45% of all of our employees now are millennials between 25 and 44 years old. In the middle of that bar shows that 75% of all of our employees are female, and the average age is 43 years old, and the average salary at Kootenai Health, not including physicians, is $72,000 a year for full-time work compared to a county average of $52,000. So a lot of young families represented within our workforce at Kootenai Health. And then, like everybody else, you can't drive around town without seeing hiring signs everywhere, and we're no different. The second bullet just highlights we currently have 750 open positions at Kootenai Health, which is over 2 times our normal vacancy rate. So we have a lot of work to do in terms of hiring and recruitment. And I just wanted to also highlight the other yellow area. Our hiring needs are in every single position category. Nurses, housekeepers, medical assistants, billers, pharmacists, etc. There's not a department that isn't in need of more employees. So we feel the challenge in the community like all of you do, and it's no different at Kootenai Health. And then one of my last slides, we really think that the future of our organization in many ways is dependent upon our ability to recruit new employees. Without employees, we can't grow. And so we've created an initiative called Workforce of the Future. And that second bullet is really important. Collaboration with area colleges and universities has never been more important than it is today. We really need North Idaho College, Lewis and Clark State College, University of Idaho. We really need them to help us increase the pipeline of candidates coming into the workforce. Another thing I wanted to mention is we no longer focus our recruitment just locally or regionally. We participate in job fairs all throughout the Pacific Northwest and the Mountain States. And just one last plug, we have a daycare center at Kootenai Health that has 165 children. That daycare center is so full that we have as many people on the waiting list to get in as we do current children in the daycare center. So a little bit of a plug for future growth in our community is we are really short on daycare facilities. And last slide is just it's a nice quote that I think is relevant to our circumstance. Success seems to be connected to action. Successful people keep moving. They make mistakes, but they don't quit. And I think that's our mantra at Kootenai Health. So that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, John, very much. Appreciate it. And as I said, stay tuned. We'll have you back for some questions from the audience here and after the next 2 speakers. And so next I'm going to introduce Josh Wright. And Josh is the Executive Vice President of Workforce and Economic Development at Emsi Burning Glass, which is a labor market analytics firm. Josh leads a team of 500, leads a team that helps 500 plus communities use labor analytics to increase economic prosperity in their regions. Josh is a former journalist for the Lewiston Morning Tribune and the Spokesman Review, who joined Emsi in 2008. And without further ado, Josh, thanks for being here from Moscow, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks so much, Mike, and thank you to the board of directors and to Gynii for giving me this opportunity. I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about the demographic drought and the Sansdemic that we're seeing here. And let me show my screen here really quickly. I'm going to share. Here we go. Just bear with me for a quick second as we work through this. And I've got the wrong, hold on one second here. Let's see if I can do this. Nope. I'm actually just going share another screen really fast here. Okay. Some of these, since I'm not smart enough to figure out the presentation mode, I'm going to just share, I'm just going to go through these slides like this. Sorry for the smaller screen, but I don't want to spend any more time going through technical issues. So earlier this past summer, late spring, Emsi released a report called The Demographic Drought, talking about the Sansdemic, without how America does not have enough people to meet the talent needs of the future. And Jon and Kootenai Health's presentation there was just a perfect segue into that. Absolutely, like just seeing the what Kootenai Health is doing and how it's being proactive. So kudos to you, Jon, and your team for this. And some of the strategies I'll talk about here in a minute complement what you're all doing very, very well. The contents of today, just a quick agenda. I'm going to talk about some underlying conditions that came pre-COVID, what's happening currently in the labor force, coming people shortage, and some strategies, as I just mentioned here. Let me see if I can make my screen just a tad bit bigger. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so as we talk about the US pre-COVID, one of the biggest factors in terms of the boom that we saw in the labor force was the baby boomer generation. Much has been made about the baby boomer generation and then the millennials coming into the workforce, and I'll show that just in a second here. But the boomers brought in a huge number of people to the workforce, and also drove at the same time drove a lot of women into the labor force and drove the labor force forward because of that. So we saw a huge boom of women coming in those early, after the war, coming into from the 60s, 70s, 80s. And then we saw a massive explosion in wealth as well. And this slide shows this as well. You can see how much wealth the boomers generated, just really phenomenal in terms of real median household income in America, the change in growth because of 2 income households, and that's still having an effect today. Now, at the same time, boomers really started to retire. The explosion of retirement started around 2002. You can see this just upward trend of retirements that came. And what we saw through COVID was that a further explosion, an increase of boomer retirements, which has made the labor force shortage that much worse. And it's also meant that we've lost a lot of people who had experience, expertise, skills, management skills, leadership skills. Those people are hard to replace. So we're taking the tail end of the peak baby boomer retirements. I think we believe we're at the end of that, but it's roughly 10,000 baby boomers retiring per day. Meanwhile, as I mentioned, the millennials started entering the workforce around 2000. This is all these charts I've shown so far are national, and you can see here, though, as the millennials entered the labor force, they had the boomers started exiting, and the labor force participation actually started to drop, and that is somewhat because of the workforce habits of the millennials, different priorities, different focus for millennials. And this chart specifically talks about a really key metric that I recommend us all be tracking, and that is the labor force participation rate of the working age population, 20 to 54. Usually when you see quotes about the labor force participation, it's all workers, but 20 to 54 is a really key, a key segment of the workforce. Meanwhile, we saw this, we've seen the labor force participation just kind of muddle about. It hasn't been, it's hardly been moving. Just checked as of November, the labor force participation is 61.8% in America, and in Coeur d'Alene, our estimates from Emsi Burning Glass are that about 59 to 60% labor force participation in the Coeur d'Alene metro. So it's, or Kootenai County specifically. So it's just a little below the national average in Coeur d'Alene. There are many, many factors contributing to this current labor force. Don't have time to talk about them all today, but some of the big ones really are a decline in immigration. there's been a misalignment in the types of workers out there looking for work. People who are maybe need more education or have too much education for some of the jobs that are out there. Shutdowns have played a factor, accumulated wealth of the boomers, massive retirements that we've already touched on, and one that we're not going to touch on anymore, but I think shouldn't go unnoticed, and that is the increase in self-employed workers. We're seeing more and more people become self-employed, have their own companies, and that is having an effect on companies like Kootenai Health or companies, tech companies, any manufacturing firms who are looking for workers. Talked about this misalignment of the majority of job openings do not require a college degree. At the same time, the majority of the unemployed do have a college degree. So there is this interesting misalignment in the workforce. So where will the talent come from? Meanwhile, we know that immigration is declining. Don't have time to fully get into that today, but across the nation, the fewer immigrants coming into America. And this is having an impact because of many of those immigrants have lots of skills, tech skills, H-1B visa immigrants specifically, or need immigrants who could work on farms and other things like that. Meanwhile, as we talk about the future labor crisis, let's pivot for that for just a second. We're living for decades now, we have been below the replacement birth rate. The replacement birth rate is 2.1 kids per family or per woman, and we have been below that for over or around 50 years. So really, really strong influence on the future labor crisis. There just aren't enough kids to replace all those boomers who are leaving the labor force. Let me go to the next slide if I can here. My apologies. Having some technical difficulties. Here we go. Meanwhile, birth rates across America, except for really Utah and Idaho, is seeing a little bit of is a little bit in a better spot, but generally across America, the birth rates have plunged from 2009 to 2019. And let me see if I can go one more here. My apologies again, here we go. In addition to that, when we think about the future workforce, we talked about that key segment of the working age population, the 20 to 54. The vast majority of counties have seen a shrink, have seen their working age population shrink. You can see here though, if you can look at it, Kootenai County is actually one of those where the blue is a little bit darker. So there has been a growth in the working age population, which reflects what Jon was showing for Kootenai Health and is a very good indicator for the region's future. Meanwhile, nationally, college enrollment is also declining. So as we have fewer and fewer babies, as we have fewer young families, there's going to be fewer people going through the high school system and the college system moving forward as well. So what can we do about all this? As I finish up here, just my last couple minutes, I want to talk about a couple strategies. So there are short-term strategies for companies and regions, and there's long-term strategies. Some of these, Jon, has already really emphasized very well. Some of this is we're seeing many companies needing and having to and actually raising wages, which is a great short-term thing, but there's also inflationary implications of that. There are there's other non-wage incentives that companies can focus on and are focusing on. And there's other things around upskilling and onboarding that become super important because fewer workers means that with the workers we have need to be more productive and they need to get more productive quickly. Longer term, something that Jon mentioned is talking about future workforce planning is incredibly important for corporations. This is something that Emsi Burning Glass helps many Fortune 500 and mid-sized companies do, is to look at strategically how should they think about workforce planning and using data to drive that. So, and then building partnerships with colleges, high schools, trade schools, prisons, finding creative ways to find workers is going to be really important for companies. Meanwhile, as we think about how recruitment of workers goes, how America goes about that, how companies go about that, there's really a need to cast a wider net, to rethink job requirements, to make sure job descriptions are short and have the right skills, emphasize the soft skills and the hard skills that are needed. Harvard Business Review did an amazing study called Hidden Workers, Untapped Talent. Highly recommend looking at that because they talk about strategies to touch each of these hidden workers that we don't have time to touch on today. So highly recommend looking at that work. Meanwhile, for Gynii and her team, for regional developers, thinking about how do you get the most out of your existing talent, prioritizing resilient skills, knowing the strengths of your community to leverage that is also critically important. These are some of the ways that we're helping regions across America and Canada think about this, of looking at regional diversity, skills gaps, migration patterns, and educational attainment. Meanwhile, it's super important to know the environment we're living in, fast changing. We're hopefully in for a recovery here, but at the same time, what's happened in the past is not always going to go in the future. So what are the limits of technology? How can you harness some of these new trends? They're like remote work, being able to work virtually to be able to attract people to the region. And lastly, I'm just going to finish on this. Retain, retain, retain. People are harder to ever replace. It's harder than ever to replace people. It's super important to think about how do we value the workers we have, people we have in our regions, families we have, so that we can help them stick around or recruit them back to the region. All of this is really central to Emsi Burning Glass, local company here down in Moscow, Idaho, and our mission, and that is to use data to drive economic prosperity and mobility. So happy to answer any questions during the Q&A or offline as well. So thank you, Mike.
Josh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Emsi is really a fabulous growth story in Moscow and now nationally, and all the work that you guys have done. So we appreciate you taking time today. On a personal note, I'd like to say we're so committed to economic development. My wife and I have tripled the replacement there with 7 kids, but there's only so much I can do. So the rest of you get busy. I am awaiting Maggie Lyons appearing here. Maggie is a longstanding, lifelong Idahoan, and there she is. Hi, Maggie. I'm going to introduce you briefly. Maggie's a licensed CPA who's been working involved in business restructurings and liquidations for the past 20 years. She describes her work as helping people resolve their fights over money. In early 2018, Maggie launched the nonprofit Charity Reimagined, which is dedicated to changing the paradigm for helping people in need, from methods that sustain chronic dependency to methods that build individual capacity. In July 2018, Maggie was asked to assume managerial duties to help the financially troubled North Idaho Housing Coalition following embezzlement, which we're all familiar with that story. 100% of the losses were recovered and repaid, and the organization has rebranded as Panhandle Affordable Housing Alliance. The mission is to provide home ownership within reach of local workers and to provide flourishing housing for our very low income families in Kootenai County. Fully restructured and reinvented, PAHA is built on a foundation of skill, compassion, and accountability. And thanks to a strong board and strategic community partnerships, PAHA has received funding approval from Idaho Housing and Finance to build 8 new rental townhomes in 2022. Great story. Please join me in welcoming Maggie Lyons.
Thank you, Mike. Nice to be with you all today. I do appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. I appreciate everything that Jobs Plus has done for our community and continues to do. As we know, a healthy community relies on the robustness of its workforce, and we need to continue to keep our workforce here and to build our workforce. So today I'm going to talk to you about just the history quickly. Mike gave you a bit of PAHA. Then I want to talk to you about the housing and wages here in Kootenai County and how we define affordable housing. That's a loosely used term. And then lastly, I want to talk about efforts that we're capable of here in Kootenai County in relatively short order to address the lack of available housing that our workers are facing. So I wanted to do a shout out here. We reorganized essentially in 2019 after repaying 100% of the stolen funds. The new board of directors is a terrific group of individual and community leaders. Gynii, Gilliam, and Todd sit on the board, along with Jon Bruning, Jeremy Hobson, and Chrissy Carlson. Jim Hawkins, a previous commerce director for the state of Idaho, was also on the board until about a month ago. We have over $800,000 in the bank, 20 low-income rentals right now that are providing much-needed housing for our very low income. And then, as Mike mentioned, really excited that we were able to secure a funding approval from IHFA, Idaho Housing and Finance Authority, to build 8 new townhomes in Post Falls in 2022 for our extremely low income. Next slide. Yeah, great. So how do we define low income? I have learned in this journey with PAHA that the lines, I think, are blurred, if not erased, for many living and working here in Kootenai County. Next slide. So let's talk about how we define low income. I mean, there are different ways to talk about it, but most traditionally, low income is defined by our federal government, HUD. So the slides that I'm going to share with you during this presentation really focus on a family of 4 with a couple of young children. HUD defines area median income, or AMI, for Kootenai County in 2021 as $65,500. So half above and half below make that wage, according to HUD. I like to think in wages. So for this area median income, it's $32 a wage. By our standards in Kootenai County, that is a very good wage. I love what Jon had to say, as well as Josh, because a lot of what I'm going to cover, they already hit on many of these points. The first tier of low income, according to HUD, is 80% AMI. That, for a family of 4, that's making $26 an hour, which is still a very good wage. 50% is the middle or very low income bracket, according to HUD, and that's about $16 an hour. And then we have our very lowest tier, folks, and that's 30% AMI, extremely low federal poverty level. Many living in this level are what I call our generational poor. And I will tell you that statistically in the United States, 83% of people born into generational poverty never leave it. It's a staggering statistic that's almost unbelievable. Next slide. So then I said, okay, well, what does that look like in Kootenai County? And I went to some great data provided by United Way. And again, this data right here is all based on 2018 and 2019, so pre-COVID tsunami impact on our county. According to the United Way for Alice data, 12% of our households in Kootenai County are at the federal poverty level. 28% are unable to make ends meet. And this was before the incredible cost of living increases that have occurred post-COVID. Next slide. So what does that look like? I wanted to picture, okay, what does it mean to not be able to make ends meet for our asset-limited, income-constrained employed workers? HUD tells us that $32 an hour is the area median income for workers. United Way tells us through their ALICE data that a survival budget, which is absolutely bare bones, very, very difficult to live at this level, is $30 an hour. And that is with a housing allowance of $761 a month, which is not attainable in Kootenai County today. A stability budget for Alice, family of 4 with 2 children, is $53 an hour. That is over $100,000 a year. Next slide. So then I said, okay, well, what does it look like then for affordability for our current housing situation? These numbers as of June, Zillow gave us an average of $491,000 for a home sale. We faced about a 31% increase over the past year in home prices. And a county MLS snapshot tells us that the median home value in Kootenai County was $451,000. Next slide. So what does that look like for affordability for these various levels of income earners? At our 80% AMI, which HUD tells us is the first level of poor, what they can afford to buy for a home is a price point of about $270,000. And that is assuming a 3.1% mortgage over 30 years with 5% down. At AMI, that family can afford a home at $335,000. And if interest rates go up, in talking with my bankers, for every percentage point, 1 basis point increase in interest rates, there's about an 11% impact on the decrease required in affordability. So for instance, our 80% AMI earner at $270,000 at a 3.1% interest rate, it would drop to affordability of $240,000 if we have a 1% increase in mortgages. So I think it's really this to me was really important to look at in terms of where are we as a county in terms of where we need homes priced for people to afford to buy them. And as you can tell, even at our 130% AMIers, that $436,000 does not even meet what we were facing as of June, according to our real estate statistics for home values. Next slide. So then let's talk about supply. We've talked a bit about affordability. How about availability? And I will tell you that this data was nowhere to be found. I could back into it for our extremely low income. Our very low, extremely low income housing population has a lot of data that goes with it because of HUD. And by my calculations, we were about 5,700 units short. And affordability for this measurement is about a third of someone's income only a third goes to pay for housing. And I can tell you in this county, many in our middle income brackets are paying 50 to 60 to 70% right now of their incomes for their housing. But at the next tiers of income levels, we had no idea what the supply currently is, what is demanded based on our population growth. And so really the question is, how are we knowing what to build to? And honestly, as we all know, every contractor, every builder is building as fast as they can because everything is selling. Next slide. So in talking with the PAHA board, and particularly Gynii, with the challenges that they're facing, recruiting companies to come because companies can't move here if we don't have housing, we decided we needed a rudder for this ship that we call Kootenai County. We need to have some understanding of the current situation here in Kootenai County. Next slide. So thanks to participation by Jobs Plus and Avista and PAHA, we decided to hire that University of Idaho to perform a housing availability and affordability study for Kootenai and Shoshone counties. This is a no agenda driven, data driven analysis of what we're facing here real time in Kootenai County. I want to give a shout out to Kiki Miller and the wonderful work that's being done by the Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership. They have thrown their support behind this. They have provided access to a lot of groups for interviews. It's been really a great partnership with them in terms of letting the University of Idaho access a lot of individuals and interested parties in this process. We had hoped that the report would be out in November, but the scope grew quite a bit, and I would expect that the report will be available mid to late January. Next slide. This is just a quick snapshot of some of the key elements of what the study is encompassing, but I just wanted to just highlight for you what we're so excited about with this study is it's going to have a lot of real-time data. So thanks to major employers, thanks to the work of the Housing and Growth Issues Partnership, a lot of surveys went out to a comprehensive groups of local stakeholders. This included employers, city planners, and employees. We went out to employees and we said, tell us your housing situation right now. And those survey results, and we talked to developers as well and contractors. So we tried to do a really great overview of parties who are interested and have a vested reason to try and address and resolve this problem for our county. Next slide. A healthy housing infrastructure has to reflect our needs and our incomes. And Our low-income folks, people, according to HUD, are our workers. $18 to $50 an hour cannot afford to buy a house today in Kootenai County. This is just a snapshot. We have so many more people, but our nurses, our lab technicians, our police, firemen, teachers, bus drivers, the list goes on. Next slide. So in terms of what can we do, it's an overwhelming, if you look at it, you say, oh my gosh, this is a really difficult problem and everybody's doing their best. But there are some really unique, very creative solutions that we can look at right away that won't solve the problem overnight, but certainly can accelerate the supply of some affordable housing. I want to talk to you about just a few of those. Land cost at plus a donation value. This is how PAHA bought the property in Post Falls. We went to the landowner and we said, we don't want you to do a 100% donation, but would you consider selling us the land at cost? And then you can take a tax deduction, because we're a nonprofit, for the difference between market value and cost. That landowner liked that proposal, and so that's how we were able to make this project pencil with the land cost. Habitat's done a wonderful job with land trusts. It's ready to deploy. I think it's finished. I talked to James yesterday, and they have 6 units coming online probably in January. Well, there'll be condos deeded, and Habitat will hold the land trust to ensure affordability and perpetuity. Another really great example is up in Bonner County. That landowner, Nancy Hadley, has a passion for local worker housing. Her land that she owns, and she's going to get about the same return, a little bit less, I think, than what she would get if she sold outright to a developer. But she has been able to put restrictions on that property herself as the landowner. She has required that you must live in Bonner County for 2 years, and you have to actively be working in the county. And then as she'll get paid as those, she's partnered with a builder, and as those units are built, that's how she'll get her return on her land. Another big issue for our builders, of course, is just the difficulty right now in construction with all the constraints and challenges that they're facing. And I've talked to a number of developers who have said, you know, we've got the land, we're interested in working with you on a cost basis, but we just can't build the home. Modular homes are a great alternative for this. There are many different providers of modular homes, but I can tell you, I just recently learned about a Jewel right in our backyard in Rathdrum, Stratford Homes. It's about 8 months start to finish before a finished home is done, and their entry-level homes are beautiful, they're good quality, they're solid, and they'll be affordable. So these are just a couple of examples, but there are many more, and I wish I had time to talk to you about more of them, and I don't, but I wanted to just touch base with you on these. Next slide. So in wrapping up, I want to just recap really what we're talking about. I mean, it is fantastic that the state has done so well. Everything about what we've done as a state is positive. Record surpluses, tax refunds, we've talked about this today, we already know this. But the COVID tsunami that has hit our county has had actually an inverse relationship for the robustness as a state versus our workers here in our county. Wages have gone up, but they have not kept pace with the cost of living. We can, as a county, I know that we can, because of the good nature and the cooperative effort that we have amongst all the interested parties in this county to come together and implement creative solutions. We need to start focusing on building homes in the 200 to 350 price range. We need to always understand that there are different needs for worker housing versus our very, very poor. And the community-wide effort, I'm so excited with the developers and landowners and realtors that I've talked with, along with the businesses, local jurisdictions. There are a number of nonprofits, PAHA is not the only one, and also the government agencies who are all working and trying to find solutions. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you about this today. I look forward to your questions.
Maggie, thank you very much. There's a tremendous amount of information there, and as you said, not enough time to cover everything. I do want to say we're seeing questions come in the chat. This is a reminder to first to Jon Ness and to Josh, if you want to come back on to join the panel. I'll start with questions here. For those of you who would like to ask a question specifically or to all the panelists, please put them in the question module, which is in GoToMeeting. A couple of folks have already figured that out, so we know it's working. Thank you for that. One question that's come in is that will this presentation be recorded and be available? The answer is yes. For everybody on this call, some of the slides that you all presented have fascinating information, and so I've already gotten questions from folks that want to pursue that and get more information. I'm going to go back in the order that we went through. John, one of the questions that came up is about leadership lessons. I've listened to you speak on leadership and managing change, and it's a lot of background you have. What are some of the leadership lessons you learned at Kootenai Health during this COVID-19 pandemic?
Thanks, Mike. You know, as I mentioned, it's been a very complex and stressful situation, and in our organization, some people have asked me, what's it been like? And this is my best analogy. It's like running a marathon, and then when you get done, somebody tells you you need to run it again. And so there's a lot of fatigue, and it's stressful. So a couple of things that I found to be really important. Empower your leadership team like you've never empowered them before. Let them lead. So my job as a CEO is just to make sure they have resources, but let them lead the organization. Another thing that I have really been focused on is that in this environment, there is a tremendous amount of misinformation, anecdotes, rumors, social media, and much of it is inaccurate. And so when we make decisions and we decide to take action, we verify and validate all of our information by third parties. We do not use the rumor mill or social media as a fact pattern for decision making. And the last thing is, as a CEO, it seems like this past year I am constantly in search of messages of optimism and hope, and trying to find ways to motivate people in a difficult circumstance. And I enjoy that, and I think it's helpful, but we will get through this eventually, but it is really important for leaders to have those messages of hope going forward. So those are some things that I found to be very helpful.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. I'm going to go a little bit out of order with folks here from the questions, but Maggie, a question came up about the study that you referenced and whether there will be a forecast of housing needs specifically for North Idaho or Kootenai County in that U of I study and what that might look like.
Thanks, Mike. Yes, there will be. They've spent quite a bit of effort into evaluating, what the growth looks like for the region historically, and then projected it forward. And when I was talking with Steve Peterson, the lead professor on this, he indicated that about 24% growth in Kootenai County during the last decade. And by all the research that they've invested into this, they think that growth will continue for the next 3 decades. So it's significant.
Indeed. Thank you, Maggie. A question came up for you, Josh, as well, relating to the suggestions that you put together, the strategies you covered rather at the end. If you could suggest focusing just on one, if you wanted to really get laser in and focus on one of the strategies that you covered, which would it be?
I think it's a foundational thing that John just mentioned as well. It's about leadership. It goes into the heart and philosophy of leadership, that empowering people to do their jobs, valuing them. I think what we're seeing here is that people are leaving companies. We talked about, I don't know if you've all seen this great resignation theme that's been prevalent on LinkedIn about people quit rates are the highest in America, people who are quitting their job for voluntary reasons. And you see it because they're not being valued, they're not being empowered to do their jobs, or they don't believe in the company culture that they're working in, or they leave in their manager because they're not being empowered. So I would just say for all of us, as we think about how we build our teams, as we think about the people that we have on our teams, how do we empower them? How do we value them more? Make sure that we're being in a spirit of gratitude, being thankful for the work that they're doing. It's a little sappy, maybe a little cheesy, but I think it's just super important as we go through this pandemic.
Well, and that tracks actually a little bit to exactly what you said with John. One of the questions that came in, John, is a little bit of optimism and what keeps you up at night. What are you most excited about, and what are you most worried about in the next 2 to 3 years at Kootenai Health?
Yeah, great question. So, let me just start with what there's several things that I eventually worry about, but I would say in our situation, because of the continued low vaccination rate in our community, I'm concerned that we are going to have more COVID-19 spikes in our community. It is the nature of a pandemic that with low vaccination rates, we will continue to experience this cycle of low periods and then surges of COVID-19, and that will continue for a period of time. I think the thing that I'm most excited about is, in spite of the challenges of COVID-19, we're always focused on the future at Kootenai Health, and we've got some very exciting new clinical programs and announcements that are going to be coming forward late this spring, early this summer, about expansion and new services for patients in our region. And as a CEO, I love that. Anytime that we can, as a community hospital, invest in and create new programs to serve patients so they don't have to travel out of state, that is a very good thing for patients and families. So look forward to that later this coming spring and early summer.
Thanks, John. Maggie, this question came in from the folks today, and it kind of touches both. Do you see a scenario whereby the community or PAHA and an entity like Kootenai Health, our largest employer, can work together? Are there models that you have seen that could help landowners to help the housing issues in this sense?
I think definitely, right? And I mean, I think a lot of the larger employers are already on this, trying to figure out how to buy housing themselves for their employees. But there are so many options out there, right, in terms of how to structure different arrangements. And what I love so much about this particular subject is that everybody owns it, right? If we have all the developers, if we have all the businesses working together and owning this problem, coming up with not just a single solution, because it's not one, it's multiple, right? Unlike our extremely low income housing, that pretty much has to be all federal funding, right? You can't make a project pencil without that. So, but the avenues that come because of a nonprofit, it doesn't have to do the building, but if the nonprofit can be involved, certainly it supports, I think, the private business.
Interesting, and thank you, Maggie, for that. Again, I want to let folks know if they want to submit questions through the webinar, GoToWebinar thing, they can. Josh, a question for you. I'm in the technology business. And a lot of times people talk about technology and automation, artificial intelligence, and the like. How much can those things really help us in solving this labor crisis?
I think there are ways that it can help for sure, but I don't think it's a panacea in terms of you can just full bore on automation and think that you're going to solve your labor crisis. And I say that because we've gotten a lot farther with AI and automation, but we still, robots, machines still can't replace a lot of the core things that humans do, that humans were created to do. So I do think there is a great way to use technology to augment labor. I know Gynii and I had a good discussion as she was reading the report about our demographic drought report about this, going back and forth a little bit. She made a good point that there is, if you think about even a teller, the automated tellers at banks, or of course the ATM machines did years ago, but even like you go to McDonald's and you're able to pay with through a computer screen and then pick up the food. That helps with the labor shortage, but it's not going to solve everything.
So there's a place for it, but it should not be assumed to be the fix. John, one last question for you, and there's a couple more for the others too, but and I really appreciate people weighing in and asking these questions. You obviously, with the doubling in the size of Kootenai Health's workforce in the last 10 years, what are the top 3 things as a community that we should be doing to support job growth beyond the hospital and in other areas?
Thank you. Great question. So I mentioned this in the presentation. We've never needed our local and area colleges more than we need them now to develop the pipeline of future employees. And so this is really a time for all of our area colleges, universities to really focus on a partnership with the private sector and the public sector on growth of students and that can graduate, want to stay and work closer to home. So, and then I think the second thing is, as you heard from the excellent presentations by Josh and Maggie, this is a very complicated situation. And this would be a really good moment in time for our community to come together, both public sector and private sector, and really talk about this workforce of the future and build a plan and a roadmap together. There's too many fragmented pieces of this in order for us to be truly successful. But if we came together and said, we're going to build workforce of the future for the year 2025, 2030, and here are the core elements, here's the roles, the responsibilities, private resources, public resources, I think it's going to take that type of collective, community-wide, region-wide effort. And I know at Kootenai Health, we would be fully supportive of that initiative.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Maggie, another question about local workers and respect to housing, sort of two-part. What is one of the biggest challenges you've seen for local workers with respect to housing? And a question about what the apartment rental situation is in the area, if you could touch on that. In some cases, they're tied together.
Yeah, they are, Mike. And honestly, it's been a really, really tough time, right? So I would say that home displacement has been the biggest challenge for our renters. Our individuals who have a mortgage, their cost of living didn't really increase, right? It stayed the same. But it has really impacted our renters, and we have a lot of workers who rented. So with the acceleration in home prices, there are rental homes sold with really sometimes not even 30 days notice. Along with the renters who were in apartments, their rents jumped some 300% and 400% with 30 days notice. So the challenges that they faced, number one, to find replacements, right? But then on top of it, first, second, and security deposit to get into a new place. So I'll just share with you one example. I had a couple who I came into contact with. They made a pretty good wage. She was on disability. He had a great job here in Kootenai County, but they could not find a place that they could afford, right? So they've been living in their car now for 3 months. They don't want to relocate to Spokane because they have medical issues and they're tied in with doctors at Kootenai Health. So that's a legitimate reason not to relocate, and the commuting cost because he likes his job here so much. So it is a real dilemma for these individuals, and he was making about $40 an hour.
Sobering, for sure.
It is sobering.
I want to wrap up with one last question, Josh, and I'm going to let you back clean up here. For time reasons, we're about out of time for the panel. And again, I'll say thank you in a moment. But Josh, if you could give your best pitch on what the Coeur d'Alene region should be doing right now to stem the tide on our labor issues, what would that be?
Boy, I think some of it's already underway, and I would say I would just echo what about the fourth time I think I've done already for what Jon said. Like, I think it's time for the public sector and the private sector to come together. Maybe some of that's already happening, but as Jon said, it just intrinsically workforce development, and we see it across the country. We work in almost every state and community. We see this. It's intrinsically fragmented. It's hard. There's a lot of people doing a lot of different agencies, maybe tripping over different other agencies, and the work is hard. It's hard to get industry. It's hard to get companies on the radar, especially if you have a lot of small companies, a lot of small manufacturers, small to medium-sized companies, and understand their needs. And I know the Coeur d'Alene region has that. So it's a huge challenge, but I would say that's the biggest thing, is to get private and public sector working together, having agencies, having intermediaries like Jobs Plus come in and facilitate that conversation for where do we want to be as a region in 5-10 years, and have that same vision and goal and go after it.
Thank you, Josh. Maggie, Jon, all of you, one of the things that Zoom calls and don't allow for is applause and appreciation from the attendees, but I know that there's a lot of folks that are on. We've got more than 100 attendees right now, and your presentations are both sobering and uplifting, because we can get through this and there's a lot of things going on. Thank you both, all three of you, very, very much. And I'd like to ask Tag Jacqueline to join us now. We're going to transition into the business meeting part of our annual meeting. And so again, there he is, Tag Jacqueline, one of our board members, one of our executive committee members, and one of the finest young, I don't know what category you fit in those age demographics, Tag, but we love you, whatever one it is.
Yeah.
You're a millennial?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you good for you, and I want to thank you for your service on the board. And so I'm going to turn it over to you now and take it from here.
Great, thanks, Mike, and thank you to all of our panelists. Some really informative presentations and kind of eye-opening, really, about our community, some of the data and information out there. So as Mike mentioned, this is now the business portion of our meeting. And so first of all, I'm just going to go over our executive committee. So Mike Kennedy, who you just heard from, he's our incoming board chair. David Flood is our secretary. I'm currently serving as our treasurer. And Brad Marshall is our outgoing chair. We have some really exciting new board members coming on this year. And just as a reminder for those who did this last year and prior years, following this meeting, there'll be an email going out to our investor members to formally vote on the new slate of board members, and I think we're going to include their full bios in that vote as well. But I just wanted to introduce those board members here and then just kind of give a few highlights of their bios. So first of all, we have Eve Knutson, president of Knutson Chevrolet. She's a third generation to own and operate the dealership that her grandfather started in 1939. Eve has a long-standing passion for serving her community and her industry, especially when it comes to promoting women as community and industry leaders. She has served on numerous local boards and committees. We also have Nicole Sherman, COO of Numerica Credit Union. In more than 25 years of proven industry leadership, Nicole has developed a reputation as both an innovative and inspiring. A sought-after speaker, she's a natural teacher. She's a top-rated faculty member of the Pacific Coast Banking School at the University of Washington, Foster School of Business. And she's brought her philosophy of live on purpose, lead with intention to Numerica as COO in 2020. In Numerica, she's also found alignment with her own purpose-driven passion for her community. We also have Dr. Larry Stauffer. He's the interim CEO at the University of Idaho, Coeur d'Alene. He served as the Dean of College of Engineering on the Moscow campus for 10 years, overseeing and establishing priorities for the second largest college at the University of Idaho. He's worked at the University of Idaho in several capacities since 1987. He has served as an interim dean, senior associate dean, director of the College of Engineering in Boise, and throughout he has been a professor of mechanical engineering. We also have Duffy Smock, managing broker of Windermere Realty. Raised in Coeur d'Alene, Duffy knows North Idaho, Kootenai County, and Coeur d'Alene and the surrounding area like nobody else. Not only his training, but having grown up in real estate makes Duffy an expert in his field. He's learned over time what makes a realtor a great realtor: devotion to customer service, loyalty, integrity, complete knowledge of our area, a hard work ethic, and genuine care for his customers. We also have Dina Nacarado, superintendent, Post Falls School District, number 273. Dina has been a public school educator for over 26 years and spent the last 18 in the Post Falls School District, working as an assistant principal and principal at Post Falls High School, as well as the K through 12 director of programs and instruction and assistant superintendent before taking over as superintendent. And she's in her second year as superintendent now. She's committed to not only the educational system, but also larger community in Post Falls. She serves on numerous community-based committees, such as the Post Falls Chamber of Directors. So again, welcome to all of our new board members, and thank you for your engagement and the work that you all have done and will continue to do to help our region thrive. At this time, we'd also like to thank some of our outgoing members, board members, for their leadership and their dedication to CdAEDC Jobs Plus. Those outgoing board members are Michael Woolston, Linda Davis, Charles Buck, Stephen Cook, Rick McLennan, and Gary Schneidmiller. Thank you again to all. And now I'd like to turn things over to Gynii Gilliam, President and CEO of CdAEDC Jobs Plus. Take it away, Gynii.
Thanks, Tag. Appreciate it. Okay. All right. So we are happy to present the annual report for 2020 and also some updates for the current year. As you all know, our mission is to help build a healthy economy by strengthening the base, diversifying the economy, supporting the creation of new jobs, and advancing workforce development. We do all this, of course, in cooperation with our partners, our business and industry leaders, all levels of government, and service organizations in our community, state, and the region. Our list of investors, sponsor, and partner businesses and organizations is over 100 strong, with some investing in our community through CdAEDC since our inception in 1987. Thank you to everyone for that. The why is for the success for our communities and residents. We help both existing and new businesses in creating new and better jobs with better wages and opportunities to generate tax dollars for our schools, roads, fire police, and other services. Our focus remains the same, diversifying our economy and our industry strengths, namely manufacturing, warehousing, professional services, tourism, and recreation, along with our health and information technology sectors. For 2020 and 21, we worked with well over 4 dozen companies, with about a dozen of the projects coming to fruition. These 12 companies created or will be creating a total of 800 new direct jobs, bringing in about $28.6 million in new capital to our county and adding another $37.3 million to our community's annual payroll. Kenworth was announced this spring. One will be having a groundbreaking shortly, with the others being announced as the projects are ready to go public. In our current year 2021, the news is excellent, with leads coming strong and regularly. Of our current projects, 6 have applied for the state's TRI incentive or a local incentive, and that usually indicates more seriousness of planning. And on behalf of the board of directors, I'm happy to report that our organization is in sound financial position. Our income decreased in 2020 and 2021 due to the pandemic, but we also gained new investors, and the PPP from the ARPA grants helped a lot. Our budget for 2020 was $439,000, with actual income coming in at $386,000 and actual expense at $358,000. This year's 2021 budget was set at $387,000, and our income was already ahead of budget this past month. Both in 2020 and 2021 received $57,000 each year in PPP. For 2022, we set our budget back slightly over $400,000, hoping for a somewhat return to travel norms, both for us and our clients, by the second and third quarter of the year. Last but not least, we have a healthy reserve of at least 75% of our normal annual budget. We're continuing to keep things lean to extend our reserves reach in anticipation of potentially tough months ahead. Looking forward, we have big challenges, as you heard from our panelists, but our community is strong and we will get through the pains of growth. As I've said before, these big challenges give us transformational opportunities. We submitted an EDA ARPA Build Back Better Regional Challenge proposal with Eastern Washington and Western Montana. It's wild and it's a long shot. They wanted transformational. So we told them that we wanted to use the nexus of synchronicities and the supply chain links of our strengths in health and advanced manufacturing, sorry about that, to make Mountain Inland Northwest a force in the industry. Even if we don't win the funding, we've already won in engaging 3 states in seeing the regional strengths of the Inland Northwest. My point being, we need to think big and beyond our borders. Our region and our state have big challenges. We're doing well compared to most other locations. Our big challenges are related to accelerated growth and, of course, the pandemic. And although some would argue otherwise, these are good problems to have. They're better than 2-digit unemployment, too many houses to sell, and no business growth. But yes, these are issues that we still need to address. Many were challenges prior to the pandemic, with the pandemic exacerbating the challenges. To address these challenges, many of us have had to pivot and adapt to new norms to continue to succeed. Some, unfortunately, are still struggling. For us at CdAEDC, Jobs Plus, we're focusing on retaining and strengthening existing business and industry, including looking at ways to grow our health and technology sectors and supporting organizations that assist entrepreneurs to find their footing. We are continuing to recruit in our areas of strength and embrace our regional strength to help us all raise the tide. As to our vision for the future, it's of course a given that we all want to surface from the pandemic challenges. Through the rest of the year, we will continue to work on increased economic activity and business diversity. And as everyone mentioned, encourage more advanced educational opportunities targeting jobs for the future and developing creative talent development, retention, and recruitment programs, as well as continue to help with forward thinking and big picture future planning and solutions for our region. With regard to this last point, our region has always been excellent at envisioning the future. Our county, 4 cities, the hospitals, our schools, and several other organizations are working on getting us through the pandemic and into a more successful future, whether it's addressing COVID, talent shortages, housing and transportation demands, broadband expansion, and other infrastructure needs. Most can't be solved overnight, but please know that our community is working on finding solutions. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. So now is not the time to be fighting, but rather a time for us to work together. So let's all rise up to the challenge. We have that rich history of coming together, overcoming hurdles, and reaching our vision. Let's focus on that. So my call to action this year is be kind, be understanding, be engaged peacefully, and be thoughtful. There is strength and goodness in our community. Thank you. This concludes our annual report. Now I'll hand the program back to Mike Kennedy, our incoming chairman of the board. In his day job, he is the president of Intermax Networks, a tech company providing internet bandwidth, telephone and voice services, and IT managed services to North Idaho and Eastern Washington. Mike, take it away.
Thanks, Gynii. I appreciate that very much, and it's good to hear about the work being done and to have a note of optimism injected in a difficult year. Thank you to everybody for joining us. This is our second virtual annual meeting, and we are close to the end, and I'm very optimistic that we will be together in person next year. For those of you that are new, we really want to offer you the opportunity. If you are not yet an investor in Coeur d'Alene Economic Development Council, also known as Jobs Plus, Lauren Witten-Kaboth, our investor relations liaison, or any of us on the board can help. Reach out and we can sit with you and talk about the various levels of support and activity to keep the momentum going. We certainly need your help on this and all the other items to market the region, to grow our economy, and to continue working together to build back stronger, as our motto indicated today. I want to thank again our event sponsors. It's very important that we have these great folks here. Advanced Benefits, Boughton Construction, Jacqueline Site, and Riverbend Commerce, Park, STCU, and the Spokane International Airport. We do a lot of work across borders to make sure that the right fits are the right availability, and we appreciate our Spokane partners as well. Special thanks to Governor Brad Little for making time for a video for us. Certainly to Jon Ness, to Josh Wright, and to Maggie Lyons again for their really informative presentations. A gentleman who does not get attention, and he's not on screen, but Travis Bertram of Pulse Productions pulls this technology together with wonderful creativity and his videography skills. I'm very happy to put a commercial plug in for Travis, who donates a lot of his time. Thank you to Lauren and Josh from our office team, and certainly thank you to Gynii. All of your work to make this go smoothly has been incredibly important. And we're very much looking forward to next year in person. And we are not just on time, we are slightly under time. And so we value your 90 minutes, and we appreciate all the work you do. Have a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us. And we will be signing off.